Well, welcome back to Silverstone for the second TCR UK race of the season of ever. Next to Dan Lloyd, right now the winner from race 1. We've got a whole lot to get through for race number 2. We're going to come to that in just a bit because race 1 was rather interesting. And to give us all the classification and what happened, here's our commentator, Andy McEwen.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn. It was a fascinating race. Daniel Lloyd took the victory. Of that, there was no discussion. He had a very comfortable winning margin. Initially, we were told that Aidan Moffat, who finished second on the road, had been given a 5-second time penalty, which would have demoted him down to 4th place. That was then reinstated. So this is the official result, with Dan Lloyd the winner. Aidan Moffat did, in the end, finish second, with Oliver Taylor third. Andreas Bachmann was 4th, and Howard Fuller in 5th place. So the big story, Aidan Moffat reinstated into second position, which means that he does not lose too many points to Dan Lloyd. And we caught up with Aidan Moffat after race 1.
Well, Aidan, that was a little bit different, wasn't it? You had the penalty, but it got taken away, so second place is yours again.
Yeah, happy with second. I was a bit confused coming in, getting waved by the podium. Yeah, we've struggled a little with the car. It's a very soft chassis car, which makes particularly sector 2 quite difficult. Those mid to exit on the slow corners, so I was using all the track plus a bit. But the rules kind of dictate that you get that initial warning, and after that it's the 5-second penalty. And yeah, so I was looking for the flag, it never came, so I thought I can just keep on doing what I'm doing, which made it a bit confusing when I seen that I had a penalty. But no, it's been reversed now, so it's good to be on the podium.
So you were pushing and pushing and pushing, waiting for that, at least some acknowledgement that you may be pushing too hard. That never came, so you carried on going.
Pretty much, yeah, trying to keep up with Dan. But yeah, the car just arrived with a few. We have to keep developing it. Dan drove a brilliant race, and he's got a lot of experience in these cars, so it was never going to be easy. But no, so well done to Dan, and yeah, happy with second.
It's, you got to feel a little bit for Andreas, so don't you?
Yeah, I felt a bit guilty walking up the steps, knocking him off the podium. But yeah, there's one more race.
Second place, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really was a pretty interesting first race there. With the end, we thought Andreas Bachmann had got it, but no, Moffat there put back into second place. Now, what's happening here, as you can see, the grid's slightly different, and this is because the way the grid works in TCR UK is we take the second fastest qualification time, top 10 are then reversed, which means Stuart Lyons here, he starts on pole. If I get in here and grab a quick word with Stuart. Now, Stuart, pole position, not the way you'd like pole position, but you've got it nonetheless.
Yeah, I think we're in a bit of bother here because we're in the we're in the DSG car, which everyone knows is a lot heavier and slower. So I'm going to be a bit of a sitting duck, but I'm not going to give up. I'll give it the best shot. Just got to drive it as hard as I can. But you know, if I can hang on to mid-pack, I think that's the best we can hope for. But let's just see what the race brings. You never know. People run into each other, don't they?
They certainly do. Good luck to this, Stuart. Let's hope not too many people run into each other. We need as many on the grid as we possibly can. I'm going to go over here and grab Ollie Kangas. Now, we spoke to him earlier on. He starts second on the grid because of that reverse grid system. Ollie, you're starting right at the very front this time. Well, pretty much anyway. What do we reckon? You're going to be on the podium?
Yeah, I hope so. I have to get a good start.
It's all down to the start, is it?
Yeah. It's a good thing to get good start, and then you have to defend your position.
Get a good start, then defend. Good luck to you there. Good start, then defend. We've got over here, we've got Andreas Bachmann, and we know that Andreas, well, we know that he had that third place taken away from him. I did speak to him in between races, and he just sort of said, hey, that's racing, that's the way it goes. And that is pretty much the best way of looking at these sorts of things. Let me just unclip this for a second. So, Andreas, you had that podium taken away at the end, but you're more determined now to get a podium this time?
Yeah, now I want to get at the podium like you do it, like you should do it, so yeah.
And you've got Stuart Lyons ahead of you, and he's got the DSG box in his car, slightly heavier car, so you should be able to get past fairly quickly.
Yeah, hopefully I can pass him in the beginning and then just drive away, but we will see how everything goes. Yeah.
All you got to do is get past him and get away. Good luck to you there, Andres. As he says, talks a very good race. It's very busy down here. We've still got, I believe, a couple of cars to get onto the grid as well. Now let's move a little bit further back. Carl Swift, he had a spin earlier on in the first race. And, well, I asked him how it went earlier on, and he just sort of said, it was all right until the spin happened. So, Carl, earlier on, you said it was going okay for the first couple of laps.
Yeah, it was a good couple of laps. I managed to gain one place and keep up with the sequentials, so I was happy with that. And then just about to do a move on Lewis Kent, down into the second to last corner and locked the rears and spun out in front of the whole field, ended up last.
Which wasn't ideal, but where you are right now, do you think you can move forward, or is it a case of holding on?
With this car on this track, I think it's a case of holding on as best I can.
Right, OK, lovely. Well, we caught up with Ollie Taylor earlier on, in fact, the other day, and here's what he said. Well, I'm here with Ollie Taylor. Ollie, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into TCR.
So, yeah, TCR is a bit of a new chapter for me. So racing's always just been a little bit of a hobby. Something I've done for fun, a bit of club racing, and kind of want to take it to the next step. Looked at a few options and thought TCR seems the best route, really exciting, and should provide some good close racing. So, yeah.
And looking at the car behind us here, the beautiful Civic. Tell us about this car and what it's like to drive compared to the things that you've driven in the past.
So I've only ever driven rear-wheel drive in my racing, Caterhams, BMWs, so it's completely different. But really intuitive, actually. It's quite predictable. It's a really fun thing to drive. The whole learning the technique of front-wheel drive approach has been quite interesting, a bit challenging, but yeah, really enjoy it.
And you got the help, a little bit of help, a bit of mentoring by Josh Files. Now, he's a pretty good person to have in your team, in your camp.
Yeah, Josh has proven his success, and their connection with the team there is, yeah, it's been sort of invaluable, really. It's been quite a steep learning curve the last few weeks. Completely changing everything I know and what I had to relearn, and yeah, Josh has certainly helped that, yeah.
Now, here at Silverstone, we've had some pretty challenging conditions. It doesn't seem to want to be dry at any stage, but you've been out there a couple of times, you've had a bit of a play, so tell us a little bit like what you expect from this season and expect from this weekend.
Every time we go out in the car is a bit of a learning curve, to be honest, but yeah, a bit of dry running yesterday, which went well, times were good, felt comfortable in the car. Wet running yesterday afternoon in the really wet, which was good. We were fastest in that session, which was great. Free practice warm-up then. We went slicks straight out the gate, which we thought was going to pay off, but the track didn't quite come to us, unfortunately. But that's free practice. You know, we were trying things. I haven't done any running on slicks in the wet, so yeah, it was times weren't there, but that doesn't matter for that session. So yeah, pleased with that.
So let's cut to say Sunday night. Are we going to see you on the top step of the podium? Are we going to see you somewhere on the podium at all? Or are we going to see you back here with your feet up?
Decent point finishes is all we're after. Yeah, that's we'll go with that. So yeah, any decent result. You know, I think there's a lot of talented guys out there. It's already proven it's going to be close, whatever happens. We just want points finishes, best points as possible. Podiums would be a great way to start.
Ollie Taylor, good luck. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Well, Ollie was telling us that he wasn't too sure about a podium, but he got a third place in that first race. He was very happy. He's got, as you can see, a fair few cars ahead of him, but I wouldn't write him off to get another podium, that's for sure. Now, a man that we thought we were going to see maybe at the sharp end kind of fell back. Lewis, what happened in that first race?
Well, we got a great start and got away quite well. Got to the back straight and we had no power. We've only just found out we had a loose turbo, so that's where our problem was. But yeah, we've done that up, tightened it all up, have fixed all the damage that we had from the first race. Hopefully we can go back out in this one and get to the sharp and get going a bit more.
So everything's been bolted back in order, you hope, and you should get to the sharp end. I mean, looking ahead of you, you've got some pretty strong competition there.
Yeah, got some strong drivers in front of me. Obviously, I've got Howard who pipped me in qualifying yesterday, so if I can latch onto the back of him or Ollie, who are both quick in the dry, I'll try and get onto the back of them and get away as fast as I can, but it all depends from how my start is and how well the car's performing, so hopefully it all just goes well.
But you've also got Aidan Moffat behind you, so it's not just what's in front.
Yeah, I've got to watch out for Aidan. Aidan's a quick driver. But yeah, hopefully it all just goes well and we can work together, all of us, and just push out to the front.
Good luck, Lewis, good luck. So we've spoken to a fair few number of the grid. As you can see, the grid girls and gentlemen now leaving the grid. And Little idea of what the atmosphere is like. I think at the moment everyone's got those nerves again, the nerves they had at the first race. Nobody wants to have an error. We've got, I believe, no, maybe Derek Palmer hasn't made it out actually. So we were looking for Derek Palmer earlier. They had an injector problem, and I don't think they've managed to get it fixed. But Aidan Moffat just there, you can see how far back he is. He's got quite a long way to go, but I know he's determined to get a #1, and he's got Dan Lloyd just ahead of him too. So the first race winner just there. It's a pretty exciting, pretty tense, pretty nervy, and I tell you, there's something to add to the nerves right now that you might not be able to get if you're watching at home, is the weather. It is dry, but it's feeling a bit damp in the air, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if we got some raindrops at some stage over the next half hour or so. So that's kind of how it feels here. I know that Andy is gearing himself up ready. In fact, you know what, I just said about rain, and a few spots of rain have just gone past us, so it is not necessarily beginning to rain very heavily, but we've got a few damp spots in the sky. Andy is there in the dry, and he's got to call this race, which is no tricky job at all. Andy, good luck. Here he is.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn. This is going to be fun, that's for sure. And with a little bit of moisture in the air, that could just throw an extra spanner in the works. Here's confirmation of your grid then. The top 10 tyres, second fastest tyres of qualifying, reversed to being Stuart Lyons, is on pole position alongside Ollie Kangas, who was very racy in race 1, Andreas Bachmann, one of the early race favourites, and Darrell Wilson, whose race 1 ended in the Beckett's gravel trap. Carl Swift also had a spin. He's 5th on the grid alongside Howard Fuller, Ollie Taylor and Lewis Kent with a now fully working turbo. He will be on row 4. Dan Lloyd and Aidan Moffat next in line on row 5, ahead of Jessica Bachmann and Finley Crocker, whilst at the tail end of the field, Derek Palmer, I believe, was there on the grid. I did spy a second Laser Tools liveried Alfa Romeo Giulietta TCR car, so we do have a full grid. There is Derek Palmer Jr., in fact, you can see, at the tail end of the field, so we've got a full quota of cars, do we? Yeah, right, yes. So Darrell Wilson is at the back of the grid, we're being told. Some part Ferme issue, we believe. So the Vauxhall Astra that should have lined up 4th on the grid is actually going to be starting from the back. That's going to be interesting to watch for. And it leaves a gap in front of Howard Fuller, who didn't get a great start in race 1. We have spoken to Howard a few times this weekend, and he said he was still trying to get his head around the launch control system on that car. A few drivers, in fact, have said that. So he hopefully will be able to get a slightly better start this time around. We heard reference on the grid there to the DSG gearboxes. I mentioned this in race 1. The DSG gearbox essentially is a flappy paddle gearbox. The sequential gearbox, you have a lever which you push forward to go down a gear and backwards to go up a gear. And the 2 cars running that DSG gearbox are the 2 Cupras of Stuart Lyons and Carl Swift, while there is a separate DSG trophy. And whichever of the DSG drivers have more points at the end of the year wins the trophy and wins a free upgrade to the sequential box. So Stuart Lyons versus Carl Swift. That was a storyline in race 1. Swift looked as though he was going to win it. Then he had the spin, and Stuart Lyons actually became the first winner in the DSG trophy for this season. Will that be the same story in this second race? We'll have to wait and find out. Of course, we'll be watching for Dan Lloyd, our race 1 winner, and Aidan Moffat coming from the 5th row of the grid. Interestingly, Dan Lloyd finds himself ahead of Aidan Moffat on the grid for this one, because it was based on the second fastest lap times, not the first. While Aidan Moffat's second fastest lap time was quicker than Dan Lloyd's, which means that he starts behind him on the grid, rather frustratingly. But that means that Aidan once again will have to find a way past that rapid West Coast Racing run VW Golf. So the grid has been cleared, the green flag lap is about to begin, and it's really important now to get some heat in the tyres, especially if there's a bit of rain in the air. Remember, tyre choice critical. They'll all be on slick tyres, but they kind of have to predict what the weather's going to be like, and if at any point over the next 30 minutes it rains, that will really change things up a bit. So away from the line they go. There goes Lewis Kent. Interesting to hear from Lewis there that he had an issue with the turbo in race 1. We did expect him to be more competitive than he was, having qualified 4th and almost on pole position in qualifying yesterday. So keep an eye on that orange and white Hyundai of Lewis Kent to really start carving his way up the order. He's starting back there with the quick runners, isn't he? Ollie Taylor just in front of him, Dan Lloyd and Aidan Moffat just behind him. So this is that's going to be an interesting little group of drivers to watch for. Early stages, if I was bold enough to make any predictions about this race. The man I'd be watching is Andreas Bachmann, lines up third on the grid, and Andreas was a revelation in race one, came storming through the order and ended up finishing fourth, but having qualified only 8th for race one, it was a bit of a surprise, pleasant surprise nonetheless, to see him up there fighting for a podium position come the end of the race. So give him a good grid position and we'll see what he can do. So that's the first of the 2 blue West Coast racing cars. He and his sister Jessica Bachmann racing in this pair of races this weekend. Ex-rallycross racers, a pair of youngsters. The other West Coast racing run car is that one, the white car of Dan Lloyd, who is working really hard to get some heat into the tyres. Stuart Lyons, though, on pole position. Now that is a recipe for excitement, if ever I heard one. The DSG cars, yes, they're a bit heavier. Yes, they're a little bit slower once they get going, but 2 points to make. First of all, Carl Swift was looking plenty competitive enough in race one before he had that spin, so they can be competitive. And the second point is that apparently they're a little bit better off the line, so it may well be that Stuart fancies his chances here of getting into Copse Corner first. Another driver to watch out for towards the back, Finlay Crocker in the new shape Honda Civic. He had an awful qualifying session yesterday. He was really not pleased after qualifying, but he came charging through to finish 6th in race one. So that car seems to have much more race pace than qualifying pace, and Finlay himself says he's a better qualifier than a racer. So just as in race one, there are plenty of stories to follow. We've got cars out of position on the grid, we've got the reverse grid thrown in there as well, and we've got Stuart Lyons and Ollie Kangas in a pair of Cupra TCR cars on the front row of the grid together. Ready and raring to go for round number 2 of the TCR UK Championship for 2018. We've had a really successful start to the season in race 1. What will race 2 bring? Let's find out. The lights go out, away we go, and Andreas Bachmann seems to have made the best start from the front of the grid. He's going to try and shoot the gap up the middle of the 2 Cupras in front of him. He's cleared Kangas, he's cleared Lyons, so Andreas Bachmann leads through Copse Corner for the first time. Lyons and Kangas will run side by side for second position. Look at Dan Lloyd. Dan Lloyd in the white car is charging around the outside, so too is Ollie Taylor, but Dan Lloyd's up to 5th, he's going for 4th, and here comes Aidan Moffat. Aidan Moffat round the outside of Lloyd as well. This could be crucial. Moffat will really want to get past that VW Golf as soon as possible and try to control the race from there, and they will be side by side down the back straight. Bachmann leads, Kangas second, Taylor third by the looks of it, with Stuart Lyons down to 4th, and Moffat and Lloyd go either side of Stuart Lyons. They split him down the middle, and Lloyd is on an absolute tear. He's third. Dan Lloyd is third. He eases Ollie Taylor out wide. Moffat comes through as well up the inside line. Aggressive stuff from Dan Lloyd and Aidan Moffat, but they need to get to the front quickly. Ollie Kangas is the next one in the sights of Dan Lloyd, and that would be remarkably for second place from a 9th on the grid for Dan. So they come through. Bachmann leads by nearly a second over Ollie Kangas second, Dan Lloyd third, Aidan Moffat 4th. Ollie Taylor is there in 5th place, and he'll feel a bit disgruntled after his treatment on that first lap, I think. Lyons is down to 6th, and the next car behind Stuart Lyons is the other DSG Cupra of Carl Swift. That's an important battle to watch for. There's Stuart Lyons, there is Carl Swift with Howard Fuller up the inside of him, and then Lewis Kent. Looked like Jessica Bachmann and Finlay Crocker came together in the background as well, but the leaders are making their way down the back straight. Andreas Bachmann, he said on the grid he wanted to get the lead at the first corner and pull a gap. That's exactly what he's doing so far. It was a textbook start from the Swedish youngster, and he has the early lead, all courtesy of that lightning fast getaway off the line. Stuart Lyons, you can see, didn't get a bad start in the DSG Cupra, did he? And it was enough to at least keep him in the battle for second at that point. Carl Swift had a really good start, I noticed. He was up into almost 4th place by the time they got to turn 1. Now, Dan Lloyd is second. Dan Lloyd has got past Ollie Kangas out of our sight, but he's into second place, and Aidan Moffat is trying to do the same thing on the inside of the Finnish driver. They almost lean on each other through Copse Corner. This is not what Moffat needs, because now Ollie Taylor joins in as well. 3 abreast down towards Beckett's. Moffat's gone through, Taylor's gone through. Now those two need to sort it out between themselves. Kangas tries to get back up the inside as well. Moffat goes through. Taylor will keep Kangas at bay, and they settle themselves down for the time being. But that's just given Dan Lloyd that bit of a break. He's already going off after his teammate. Yellow flags down at Brooklands. Why? Derek Palmer Jr. has not come through. So the second of the Alfa Romeo Giuliettas that's been plagued with mechanical issues this weekend. He has rejoined off in the distance, but possibly is pit lane bound. So it is a VW Golf 1-2, West Coast Racing 1-2. The cars may have different liveries, but they're both being run under the same awning. coming, and it is Andreas Bachmann being caught by Dan Lloyd, who has the fastest lap of the race. He's in the slipstream and he's closing down. Moffat's into third, Taylor is fourth. I'm really impressed with the pace that Lloyd and Moffat have shown there. They've really made that progress quite a bit quicker than I expected them to. So Bachmann leads down to Beckett's, but Dan Lloyd is with him already. 58.663 was Dan Lloyd's lap time last time around. That's already 0.3 of a second quicker than anybody went in race 1. So immediately they found a bit more pace in the cars for race 2. There's Lewis Kent looking a bit more competitive this time around as well, in 8th position at the moment. But as they make their way down towards Brooklands for the 4th time, Dan Lloyd is with Andreas Bachmann, who runs wide and opens the door for the Brit up the inside. Not quite enough of an opening to get through. Now Dan will need to be careful here. This is his teammate and he knows he's faster, so he doesn't have to rush this too much. But every lap that he spends stuck behind Bachmann, Moffat is going to get closer and closer behind him. Back across the start-finish line they go. The Alpha you see in the distance is Derek Palmer Jr., who had a moment on lap 1 and has recovered, but almost a lap down, so that's a shame for him. Lead us back through Copse. Andreas Bachmann, this is pressure. This is pressure. The first ever race winner of a TCR UK Championship race is breathing down his neck, and he will be doing everything he can. He doesn't need to move out of the way. He is perfectly entitled to race here with Dan Lloyd. Why on earth not? And it looks like he's going to do his best to keep his illustrious teammate behind. For third, by the way, Aidan Moffat is not escaping from Ollie Taylor. So Ollie Taylor is looking maybe to get himself back into the podium positions. That could be interesting. Back through Brooklands come the leaders. A nice, neat and tidy line this time from Bachmann, which does not open the door for Dan Lloyd, but then he runs wide at Luffield. There's a gap up the inside for Dan Lloyd. Did that pay off on the exit of the corner? Not quite, but there might still be an overlap. These cars identical in straight line performance, but Lloyd has the inside line, and Daniel Lloyd is about to move through, potentially into the race lead again. Down towards Copse Corner he goes. Lloyd on the inside, Bachmann on the outside, and Daniel Lloyd has done it from 9th to 1st in 5 laps. Remarkable stuff from Dan Lloyd. Can Bachmann fight back on the exit? I don't think he can, and that might be the last we see of Dan Lloyd if his race 1 pace is anything to go by. Down towards Beckett's we go again. Moffat is catching with Taylor as a result of that. He's only 1.6 seconds back, and there for 5th position is Ollie Kangas, almost being assaulted by Howard Fuller down at Beckett's. Howard a little late on the brakes and has to regroup and try to chase him back down again. So Lloyd leading the way, Bachmann now down to 2nd. And the next question is, can Aidan Moffat find a way through past Andreas Bachmann and get back ahead of back after Dan Lloyd? Have they been able to work on that Alfa Romeo, the Laser Tool squad, between races? Remember, there was only a 20-minute window in which they could fix the car, refuel the car, change the tyres and make any setup changes they wanted to. So only 20 minutes to do that. There's only so much you can do in 20 minutes really. So how much of a change have they been able to make? Well, Moffat just did his personal best lap, which is a 58.917. His fastest lap in race 1 was a 59.1, so he's 0.2 quicker than he went in race 1 already, Aidan Moffat. That tells me that maybe they have been able to find some performance in that car. He might have an answer for Dan Lloyd yet. Oh, Howard Fuller again late on the brakes into Beckett's. Now look at this going on further back. Oh, Jess Bachmann into the back of Darrell Wilson. This is Lewis Kent in 8th position, Jess Bachmann in 9th, Darrell Wilson, excuse me, now in 9th, 10th for Jess Bachmann, 11th Carl Swift, and 12th Finley Crocker. Darrell Wilson's Vauxhall is falling apart, courtesy of that shove that he had from Jessica Bachmann down at Beckett's, but it's not stopping him from attacking. He looks to the outside there of the Hyundai down towards Brooklands, in towards Luffield they go. Lewis Kent more competitive in this race than race 1, but still seems to be struggling a little bit, doesn't he, to keep this lot behind. Darrell Wilson is looking really racy in the slipstream. The Hyundai, a quick car in a straight line, but that Vauxhall is not sluggish either, and he's almost pushing Kent across the start-finish line. Looks to the inside. Darrell Wilson trying to take away 8th position from the youngster into Copse Corner. Kent will try to turn in if he can, and he does, and that means they're still side-by-side on the exit. What did Jess Bachmann and the others do? This, remember, is where these two collided in race 1, Lewis Kent and Darrell Wilson, but Wilson gets it this time cleanly. Wilson is through, and Jess Bachmann now launches an attack up the inside of Lewis Kent. Lewis Kent going backwards again, unfortunately, through no fault of his own, really. Finley Crocker gets through as well, and now Carl Swift also starting to join in the fun. Remember, Carl is still behind Stuart Lyons in this race, and Lyons is still leading in the DSG Trophy. Back down through Brooklands comes this sensational battle pack for 8th position, and it is Darrell Wilson who got past Lewis Kent at the corner at which they tangled in race 1 and put Darrell Wilson into retirement. So that will have felt good for Darrell, former VW Cup racer. In fact, he was a pioneer of diesel technology in the VW Cup, racing a diesel VW Scirocco. The trouble for Darrell may well be that loose rear bumper, potentially, if that catches the eyes of the clerk of the course. Leaders, meanwhile, have gone through onto their 9th lap of the race. Dan Lloyd 1 second ahead of Andreas Bachmann, but Bachmann, Moffat and Taylor are all fairly close together. That's a nice battle that's going to start developing over the next few laps. Back down in towards Beckett. Wilson's rear bumper falls off. That's good news, because it means that he won't be pulled into the pit lane to get it repaired. So that is good stuff for him. This is the fight for 5th. Meanwhile, Ollie Kangas, having started on the front row of the grid, has now got Howard Fuller, who really impressed in qualifying yesterday with 3rd place. Didn't have a great start to race 1, but fought back and eventually was able to finish 5th. He's now trying to take 5th position away from Ollie Kangas in this race as well. Back down across the start-finish line they go. Kangas leading the way for 5th place, excuse me, with Howard Fuller behind him. And they're just detached slightly from that group behind of Lyons and Darrell Wilson and everybody else. Back down towards Maggots and Beckett they go. The Laser Tools squad watching on with anguish here to see what Aidan Moffat can do. He's right with Andreas Bachmann now, by the way, I can see on the timing screen. But Ollie Kangas trying to keep Howard Fuller at bay. Here are the leaders, and yes, I thought so. Aidan Moffat is with Andreas Bachmann. He's up the inside of Andreas Bachmann nearly as he heads in towards Beckett. Brooklands, excuse me. But Moffat has really closed in on Andreas Bachmann. Now, the more time he spends stuck behind Bachmann, first of all, the further away Dan Lloyd will get, and also the closer Ollie Taylor will get to him. So this is going to be a very, very interesting situation here. He'll want to get through as swiftly as possible. They've all put a lap on Moffat's teammate, Derek Palmer Jr., so he's out of the way. Lewis Kent is being warned, meanwhile, for exceeding the track limits, but we'll focus on that a moment, because Aidan Moffat is alongside Andreas Bachmann, and in the end, Andreas makes it fairly easy for him. I think he knew that Moffat was quicker, and it almost serves him better to just let Moffat through and try to work together to close in on the leader, because Dan Lloyd has not run off into the distance. He's only 1.6 seconds clear. They could still be able to catch him. Ollie Taylor is also catching the pair of them as well. As they make their way down in towards Brooklands for the 11th time of asking, it is Moffat now into 2nd place. I mentioned that black and white warning flag for Lewis Kent. That is not a time penalty as of yet. That's just a warning. If he does it again, though, if he exceeds the track limits again, then he will be given a time penalty. Aidan Moffat is also being warned for exceeding the track limits. Now remember, he very nearly fell foul of that in race 1, so he needs to be careful. Aidan Moffat in 2nd place. He may have just taken that 2nd place, but he's being warned for exceeding the track limits one more time, and he will be given a 5-second time penalty. Seems all right out of Cop's corner, though, so Dan Lloyd leads by 2.2 seconds over now Aidan Moffat. He's not shaking off Andreas Bachmann yet, though, in 3rd. Ollie Taylor in 4th, Howard Fuller in 5th, Ollie Kangas is 6th, so they have changed around now, so Fuller has found a way through. Then it's Stuart Lyons and Darrell Wilson next in line. And in fact, Darrell Wilson is catching Stuart Lyons as well. So there are lots of interesting battles developing throughout the field. For now, though, we focus on this fight for 2nd place. Aidan Moffat, having got past Andreas Bachmann, is really not getting away from the Swede, is he? Andreas has been such a revelation this weekend. We knew he was quick. We didn't realise he was quite this quick, and he is now putting a real challenge on an experienced touring car racer. You forget how long Aidan Moffat has been racing touring cars. He's been around for 4 or 5 years in the touring car arena. He knows what he's doing in one of these things, and here is Andreas Bachmann, ex-rallycross racer, 1st season of touring car racing. Says he's only here to prepare for the Scandinavian Championship, but I know that he is keen to get out for as many races as possible this year, and you can see why. His sister, meanwhile, Jessica Bachmann, has just gone up the inside of Darrell Wilson, so that puts her into 8th position now, as she will chase down Stuart Lyons. Finlay Crocker is also slowly making some progress. He's in 10th place at the moment in that new shape Honda Civic. He will now try to get up the inside of Darrell Wilson. He's had a much tighter line through the corner and does get alongside the Vauxhall as it goes down the straight. Finley's been complaining about a bit of a lack of straight line speed this weekend, but he's looked racy enough in the pair of encounters we've had today. Darrell Wilson, in fact, coming back at Jess Backman now as they go into Brooklands, but there's nothing doing there. Back through the left-hander they go. Backman a bit wayward there, but gets back in front of Darrell Wilson, holding on to her newly acquired 8th place. Aidan Moffat back through Copse Corner, and look at Andreas Backman now. Let's see, are they catching the leader? Answer no, 2/10 slower than Dan Lloyd last time around. So Backman may as well go for this and try to find a way through back into 2nd place. He's no reason really to show too much respect to Aidan Moffat here. If there's a chance to get back ahead of the Scottish driver, then he will go for it. Back down the Wellington straight they go. The Alpha is quick in a straight line, but Backman's VW seems more than capable of staying with him. Another car being warned for exceeding track limits, which is car number 45, which is Carl Swift, who also got in trouble for that in race 1. So far these are just warnings rather than actual time penalties, but with still over half the race to go, that's not a nice position for a driver to be in, because one more lapse of concentration, one more, a little bit too much speed carried through a corner and heading over those white lines, and all of a sudden your race could be ruined. Back across the line we go, 58.9 for the leader, 59.4 for Moffat, 59.5 for Backman, and a 59.9 for Ollie Taylor. So nothing particularly changing across the top 4. Back down in towards Beckett's they go. Moffat hard on the brakes. That car does seem to move around a lot. And look at the way that Jessica Backman has caught Stuart Lyons. That's happened over the course of just a lap or so. This is for 7th position now. So Jessica Backman, maybe she's been chatting to her brother between races. She's really making that West Coast racing car sing. Darrell Wilson, meanwhile, what's left of his car, is trying to keep Finlay Crocker's Honda behind him, and Finlay's up the inside again in towards Beckett, but then the momentum carried by Darrell around the outside line just means that he's able to keep the place down towards Brooklands. Just in front of them, Jessica Backman is attacking. She's looking to the outside of Stuart Lyons. You don't know where to look in this race, do you? So many battles up and down the order. But the place has not yet changed. You sense, though, that the change is imminent, because Stuart Lyons is coming under increasing pressure now from the Swedish youngster. And Jessica certainly not being overshadowed in this field, is she? She is more than capable of getting stuck in, getting her elbows out and racing her way through the field. If she could get past Lyons, you wouldn't bet against her catching Ollie Kangas or maybe even Howard Fuller in front. Back through Copse Corner, Lyons defends on the way in. That, in theory, could give Jessica a chance to attack on the exit. It doesn't quite pay off. Now, what's Finlay Crocker going to do? This has been his favourite place to attack all day. Oh, he tries something new this time. Goes to the outside. Way too late, Finlay. Way too late on the brakes. Tries a bit of grass back onto the track. Is there an issue with the car? No, I think he's okay, but that was... well, he kept trying to get up the inside for lap after lap, but then that time tried something different and it didn't pay off. So Moffat and Andreas Backman still in the same order, still not quite as quick as Dan Lloyd in front of them, but 0.4 of a second is all that's between them. Andreas certainly going for this and really trying to find a way past the much more experienced touring car racer. Replay here. Oh, he got very close to the back of Aidan Moffat's car. A bit of contact between the two of them into Luffield. I don't think that was intentional by Andreas. He just tried to roll a bit more speed into the corner, but Aidan Moffat had sort of stopped on the apex and they met in the middle. No damage done. Aidan won't be too disgruntled at that. It didn't cost him a place, but that was a signal of Andreas Backman's intent. He wants this 2nd position. West Coast Racing would love a 1-2 finish as well. They got 2 cars, well, they thought they had 2 cars on the podium in race 1. They had 1st and 4th in the end in race 1, but this time they'd really love a 1-2 finish, and it's well within their grasp. Back down through Luffield we go. Jessica Backman, meanwhile, has found a way past Stuart Lyons. So Jessica Backman is now up into 7th place, 3.1 seconds behind Ollie Kangas. And so she'll be monitoring that gap now to see whether she can catch him. Leaders go through, 2nd and 3rd. There's Ollie Taylor 4th, then the lapped car of Derek Palmer Jr., but he's keeping good pace, which is interesting to see. Howard Fuller coming through next in 5th, then Ollie Kangas in 6th, and then 7th place for Jessica Backman, and you can see she's already racing away from Stuart Lyons, who's now coming under pressure from the other green car of Darrell Wilson. So Lyonsy struggling a little bit maybe at this stage of the race. Darrell Wilson, meanwhile, has been warned for exceeding the track limits at turn 1, which is Copse Corner. So another driver who's on the hit list for the clerk of the course. If he does it one more time, 5-second penalties coming his way. Leader Dan Lloyd again. Now Bachmann looks really strong through this part of the circuit, doesn't he? He's attacked here several times, and he might have got an overlap here. Gets a much better exit from the corner, a tighter line, but Moffat is just about able to hang on. Back through Woodcote we go. And so in the pit lane, the teams are watching on with interest the live stream to see what's going on, because of course you can't see the whole circuit from the pit lane, so the live stream proving very useful for the teams and family members watching on down in the pit lane. That's great to see. This is also great to see young Andreas Bachmann, one of the youngest drivers in the field, the Swedish driver at the wheel of the number 19 West Coast Racing VW. Andreas Bachmann, 22 years of age, so he is actually only a year older than Aidan Moffat. So these are two of the youngest drivers in the field going head to head for second position, and it really is fantastic to see. Back through Brooklands they go. This is where Bachmann seems strong. He can carry so much speed into the right-hander at Luffield. If ever he can get close enough to throw it up the inside there, I think he would absolutely go for that move. There's no reason for him to sit in third place for the remaining 11 minutes. If there's half a chance, I think he'll go for it. We've already seen that earlier on in the race. Dan Lloyd, 4.3 seconds now clear of Aidan Moffat at the front of the field, who of course is rather busy. He's got his hands full of Andreas Bachmann. Our Stuart Lyons' mood will not be improved by the news that he's now being warned for exceeding the track limits at Copse Corner as well. And he's coming under further pressure from Darrell Wilson, who only a lap or so ago we were told had done exactly the same thing. So these two drivers both on final warning as far as track limits are concerned. And you can see Stuart Lyons gets nowhere near the exit curve that time. He's not taking any risks as far as that is concerned. Stuart, though, is looking good still, isn't he, for a double DSG trophy victory, so he can still salvage something from this weekend. The Maximum Motorsport prepared car. Maximum Motorsport, of course, Stuart Lyons' team. Now this is Ollie Taylor with the lapped car of Derek Palmer Jr. just behind him. What's interesting me here, though, is that Derek Palmer Jr., for all of his issues he's had this weekend, he's had hardly any track time whatsoever, really, certainly not in the dry, but he is keeping pace with Ollie Taylor, podium finisher from race 1. So clearly, Derek, in fact, he's actually challenging Ollie Taylor now as they go down the back straight. There is a lap between these two cars, but this is a great showing for Derek Palmer Jr. to show that he has got the speed. When the car works, he can be really competitive. This is good to see from the young Scot. Makes his way back down towards Beckett. Ollie Taylor doesn't need to defend from him, but Ollie hasn't got anyone else to race with at the moment, so it's good for him to be able to compare himself to another car, a quick car, on the circuit. Now, a bit of bodywork there, flapping loose on the back of Aidan Moffat's car. That's presumably courtesy of that little love tap that he had from Bachmann a few laps ago at this very corner. Again, you see Bachmann rolls it in. That was where Moffat was really struggling in race 1. He said on the grid, didn't he, to Bryn earlier on, that the car is set up very soft, and that makes it hard to turn in through the tight corners, and that is why Bachmann is able to just carry much more speed through the corner. The trouble is converting that into a potential overtaking manoeuvre. Across the line go Taylor and Derek Palmer Jr. Teams continue to watch on with interest. What can Andreas Bachmann do? He's got 9 minutes, just less than 9 minutes left, to find a way past Aidan Moffat. Ooh, a bit of a lock-up there for Moffat. That will be encouraging news there for Bachmann. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Darrell Wilson has found a way into 8th place ahead of Stuart Lyons. So Lyons is slipping further back, but he's still a couple of seconds ahead of Carl Swift, his class rival. Dan Lloyd has been the class of the field this weekend. Pole position yesterday. We sort of didn't know whether that was a genuine pole position, though. We knew he was quick. We didn't know whether he was the quickest driver here. But he's proven today, without a doubt, that he has been the master of the Silverstone National Circuit. Aidan Moffat's been his nearest rival thus far, but Andreas Bachmann still feels that he's got a chance of getting into second place here. Across the start-finish line they go. The VW of West Coast Racing is only 0.3 of a second behind the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. Both of these cars look absolutely stunning. The car that Andreas Bachmann is driving is one of the two cars that West Coast Racing ran in the TCR International Series last year, and that's the joy of TCR racing, of course, that you can take a car that you race in the UK Championship and you can compete in any other national national championship, a European championship, a world championship even, if you wanted to. We heard Jonathan Ashman saying at the start of the broadcast that is exactly what he wanted to create, or Marcello Lotti and everyone else at WSC wanted to create with TCR. And so this car we saw being driven by the likes of Gianni Morbidelli and Altoe last year in the International Series, and now the Bachmans have got hold of them for 2018. And this Bachman is looking very racy. Aidan Moffat's having to really drive defensively here. He's just slowing down through the apex so as not to allow Bachman to get a run on him onto the next straight. Their pace, though, is really slowing. They're 4 seconds still behind Dan Lloyd, and we've got 7 minutes remaining on the clock. Ollie Taylor still 4th, Howard Fuller 5th. Good battle developing further back. Finley Crocker and Carl Swift are catching Stuart Lyons. That could be an interesting one to watch for over the next few laps. There's Ollie Kangas, front row starter. Is he being caught by Jess Bachman? Yes, by about 0.4 of a second last time around. So again, throughout the field, the gaps are ebbing and flowing, and it's interesting to see the drivers that are coming on stronger as the race goes on. They're potentially the ones that have looked after their tyres the best. 6.5 minutes still to go. Cocking her inside rear wheel there was Aidan Moffat. Bachman is getting dangerously close to the back of the Alfa Romeo now through his strongest part of the circuit. Ollie Taylor still keeping the lap to Derek Palmer Jr. behind him, but not by much, it must be said. It's good, though, to see Derek getting some laps in here. Remember, he had a mechanical issue, we believe a return of the fuel injector gremlin from yesterday that put him out early in race 1. With second place here, Aidan Moffat over the curb a little bit there, possibly still within track limits. Down in towards Maggots and Beckett's they go. Bachman, you know that he's quick. We get right onto the tail of Moffat now. There was almost a bit of paint traded. He's heading now down towards the part of the circuit where he's been strong, and he's in the slipstream as well. So Bachman, I'd say, closer than ever at this part of the circuit, and this is where he seems able to maybe outmaneuver the Alfa Romeo slightly. Moffat has to defend. That's also positive stuff from Andreas Bachman, and he's right on the tail of the Alfa Romeo now. He goes to the outside line in towards Luffield, overlapping for second place. Now, what can he do on the exit of the corner? Moffat slows it right down through the middle of the corner. Can he get the run? No, not quite. Moffat hangs on. Clever defensive driving there from the Scotsman, and he keeps Andreas Bachman at bay. So they head across the start-finish line, back down towards Copse, and Bachman is starting now to run out of time and run out of options, because Moffat has realised where Bachman is fast and has worked out exactly how he can defend from him. Further back, Stuart Lyons and Finley Crocker. I said this gap was coming down. Crocker in 10th place, trying to get into 9th. Remember, Finley was 6th in race 1, and now he draws himself along Stuart Lyons, but it's the outside line heading in towards Copse Corner. Watch for a switchback manoeuvre maybe on the exit. Or the Honda, the tail of the Honda just steps out slightly as he turns into the corner, and so Stuart Lyons keeps on hold of the position. Lewis Kent, incidentally, has dropped back down to 12th place in this race as well, some way off the pace, so not convinced they got that car entirely fixed between races. As I said, only a 20-minute repair window in which to figure out what the problem was and rectify it. Stuart Lyons and Finley Crocker almost side by side into the braking zone here at Brooklands, but Crocker can't quite get the overlap, can he? These two cars seem very evenly matched. Crocker, a good racer though, makes his way through Luffield. Time running out though now, only 4 minutes to go, and if Andreas Bachman's going to find a way past this man, he has to do it quickly. We've got 31 laps in race 1, so by my reckoning about 4 or 5 more laps we'll get in this race. Can Andreas Bachman find a way through? He's been pressuring Aidan Moffat race long. Moffat got past him, and you sensed really that Andreas made it fairly easy for Moffat to go through earlier on, maybe expecting Aidan to run off into the distance. That didn't happen, and now Andreas knows that maybe that was a mistake. Maybe he should have got his elbows out and defended a bit more. Looking to try and get the run out of Luffield, really trying to time it right, can't quite do it this time. And then the Alfa Romeo is always being quick in a straight line. That car's always gone well at high-speed circuits with long straights, and that's proving to be the case again here. But this is a battle that's kept us riveted throughout the race. Dan Lloyd and Aidan Moffat got to the front of the field fairly rapidly, but then whilst Dan Lloyd's been able to establish himself as the leader, Moffat has not had an easy ride. Nor has Stuart Lyons, who started on pole position. He slipped back to 9th at the moment. He would love to stay there, but Finley Crocker would love to dislodge him from that 9th position. Fuel filler cap again coming open slightly, I think, on Finley's car, but he makes his way down into the first turn. Lines defended briefly, then thought better of it, came back onto the racing line as they turned in. The good news is that rain that we discussed pre-race never did materialise, so it's been dry conditions out there throughout, which has given us a fair race. Crocker, oh, so close. He would want to reach out and touch him and just push Stuart Lyons out of the way, but he wants to try and keep this as clean as possibly he can. Tries to pull alongside down the back straight. These two cars almost identical in straight line speed performance though, so it's all going to have to be done in the braking, and there he goes on the inside. No, not quite. Finley Crocker, oh, but Stuart was a bit late on the brakes, gets out onto the marbles. Finley Crocker does now get alongside, but it's the outside line into Luffield. How frustrating. He finally forced the mistake out of Stuart Lyons. Oh, Aidan Moffat slows down. Aidan Moffat has slowed down from second position. Andreas Bachmann is into second, and Moffat has a problem. Aidan Moffat, I don't believe it, with less than 2 minutes to go, second place has gone by the wayside. What is the problem? This car has run faultlessly all weekend long, and it's grinding to a halt. He's not even going to make it back to the pit lane. Aidan Moffat out of the race. What drama at the end of the second round of the championship, and Andreas Bachmann's pressure pays off. Oh, what a bad moment for the Laser Tools Racing squad, because Derek Palmer's car's in the pit lane now with another issue as well. So both of the Alphas out within seconds of each other, and all of a sudden the Laser Tools Racing team's race has imploded. So Dan Lloyd now has a 5.5 second lead over Andreas Bachmann, who flashes through screen. Third place is going to be Oliver Taylor, I think, and fourth for Howard Fuller. So yet again, Howard has quietly gone about his business and worked his way back through. Right, let's see what happened. Well, Moffat knew there was a problem instantly. The car slowed down, he pulled out of the way, and Andreas Bachmann sailed straight through. But what was the problem? That we do not know, and unfortunately he hasn't even made it back to the pit, so we can't ask him. One more lap to go after this one, so we're going to get the full 31 laps in again that we did in race one, and Dan Lloyd looking good for a double race victory. But the way this race has gone, I'm counting no chickens just yet, because we've seen late race drama in both races now. Finley Crocker still hasn't found a way past Stuart Lyons, but of course this is now battle for 8, and behind them I think that was Carl Swift locking up and going straight on. Did he manage to keep it on the black stuff? Can't see Carl Swift there anymore, so I'm not sure whether he did, but that was, if I know, Carl Swift is not there. So has Carl Swift gone off of at Beckett's, I wonder? We'll find out in a moment. Finley Crocker turns his way. Yeah, Carl Swift has disappeared. Carl Swift has disappeared completely there from 10th place. I saw him lock up at Beckett's and I haven't seen him since. So anyway, back onto the final lap we go. And this battle now, the one that's going to run to the flag, I think, between Stuart Lyons and Finley Crocker. You wouldn't bet against Finley making a last of the late breakers lunge somewhere on this last lap, though. He's always been an exciting driver to watch, as too has Dan Lloyd. He's driven imperiously this weekend. He made the start from pole in race one and led from lights to flag, but in this one he had some real racing to do, and the speed at which he was able to work his way through the field was remarkable. And with Aidan Moffat's troubles in this race, it will be a maximum points haul at Silverstone for Daniel Lloyd. That is just how he wanted to start his season in 2018. He's very pleased with that, and it's a West Coast Racing 1-2 with Andreas Bachmann coming through in second place. A sensational weekend for the young Swede. Oliver Taylor, I think, is going to come home in third place, and we're going to get Honda's third and fourth, because it's Howard Fuller who was running in fourth. Yep, there's Taylor third across the line. Fourth place for Howard Fuller, and fifth place for Ollie Kangas, with sixth place for Jessica Bachmann. So both of the Bachmanns get inside the top six. Well, another dramatic race you've got to feel for Laser Tools Racing and Bob Moffat's team, because they were looking so strong. Aidan Moffat was, it looked as though he'd seen off all of the challenges that Andreas Bachmann had thrown at him, and all of a sudden, with a couple of laps to go, the car expires and his race is over. And then at the same time, Derek Palmer Jr., who had shown some really good pace in that race, his car came into the pit lane to retirement as well. So a real shame for them, but West Coast Racing will be very, very pleased indeed. Dan Lloyd and Andreas Bachmann, a 1-2 finish, and Volkswagen's clean sweep here this weekend, but a pole position and 2 race victories for Dan Lloyd. That is a maximum points haul, except for the fact that Andreas Bachmann set the fastest lap in race one. But other than that, really, the weekend couldn't have gone much better for Dan, who we really hope we'll be back along for more races this year, because he is a class act, someone who has had success in almost all forms of motorsport, touring car racing, GT racing, all sorts, and Dan, a really good spokesperson for TCR Racing as well, so he's a good guy to have on board, and he's going to be even more eager than ever to stick around. So the cars making their way back down in towards the pit lane. Daniel Lloyd, Andreas Bachmann and Oliver Taylor are top 3 finishers, and Bryn is down there to catch up with them.
And there is the race winner, Dan Lloyd, taking the second race of the day. 2 TCR UK races, 2 wins for Dan Lloyd. We've got Andreas Bachmann, he's in second place after earlier on where he thought he had third and then was cruelly taken away from the last moment, and then Ollie Taylor coming in with his second third of the day. Well done there to Dan, punching into the air. Let's grab hold of him. Dan. Well done, well done. We'll give you a couple of seconds to take your crash helmet off, but again, Dan Lloyd taking the race win.
Sorry, mate.
Got a sorry, mate, from Dan Lloyd. Don't you worry, you take your time, Dan. There we are, 2 race wins. Dan Lloyd, 2 races, 2 wins.
Yeah, it was an amazing start. One of the best first laps I've ever done, and sometimes you just know when you're on it, and I've been on it all weekend, and I just had one focus from the start. I was 100% confident. I know what I wanted to do, and just went for it, and it paid off, yeah.
Well, you had to gain 9 places to get up to the front there, but you did it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know, it's a long race, and the plan was to sort of pace it and, you know, just take your time, but you gotta take these opportunities in touring cars. I've been inexperienced in the past. When you don't go for it, you end up the one being pushed out. So it's better to really attack, yeah.
Happy with your day's work so far then? Happy with the way it's gone?
Yeah, massively. Massive thanks to West Coast Racing. They've done an awesome job giving me this opportunity. It was a late deal, like I said before. We're really pushing to carry on, but yeah, over the moon with the weekend.
Well done.
And also, well done to my teammate Andreas. It's his first time in this series as well. He's done an awesome job, and yeah, over the moon he's got a podium, so.
Well, he and Aidan were having a bit of a battle behind you. That was helping you out, actually. He was giving you that bit of space.
Yeah, I was watching that in my rear mirror, so yeah, over the moon for him. Yeah.
Let's go and grab hold of Andreas. He's being congratulated by pretty much everyone right now. So, Andreas, here he is. They're very, very happy. Andreas, congratulations. After what happened earlier on, you must be over the moon, as we say over here.
Yeah, it was a really good race. It was very hard to pass the guy in second, but then in the end his car broke down, so then it was free for me to go in second place, but it was really good race.
It was proper touring car. You got a little bit close a few times.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit close, but yeah, that's a part of touring car racing, so yeah.
And what a great start you had too. So all in all, you must be pretty happy.
Yeah, I'm very happy with this race. It was really good, and also the race before was also really good, so yeah.
And that's pretty good prep for Sweden as well. Well done there to Andreas Bachmann. Let's go over here to third. 2 thirds. You must be pretty happy, Ollie.
Yeah, it's a good way to start a year. I thought it could have been better at the start there. Made a good start and was ahead of Aidan and Dan, but Dan snuck a move through at Brooklands, and before you knew it, Aidan was up the inside. And after that, unfortunately, didn't quite have the pace to stay with him. It's unfortunate Aidan obviously had some sort of issue there, but 2 thirds, yeah, great start to the year.
Say, interesting you mentioned Aidan. He just rolled past you a second ago, towed back to his garage. It looked like it was between Aidan and Andreas up ahead of you, but then you got that little moment.
Yeah. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I'm not sure quite what the issue was, which is a bit unfortunate. But yeah, take away 2 third places at the start of the year. It's a great way to start.
Yeah, would you have taken that at the beginning if someone said to you, look, Sunday afternoon you'll have 2 third places and the first ever weekend of TCR UK?
Yeah, definitely great points to get in the bag and hopefully start a great year.
Well done. Time for the podium though. Off you go. And back up to Andy then. Back in commentary.
Yeah, thanks, Bryn. Just about recovering from what has been a dramatic day of racing here at Silverstone, with the TCR UK drivers have put on quite the show. Daniel Lloyd, a double race victory. Andreas Bachmann second, Oliver Taylor 2 third places. Consistency is what wins championships. He's going to be in the mix all year, I think. Howard Fuller again, 4th place, good consistent day for him, ahead of Ollie Kangas, 5th place, having started on the front row, good job from him. Jessica Bachmann really getting racy towards the end of the day, ended up 6th. Darryl Wilson survived this race in almost one piece in 7th place, ahead of Stuart Lyons, who wins the DSG trophy. Finley Crocker is 9th, and Carl Swift, the other DSG Cooper, rounds out the top 10. So fantastic stuff from everybody involved with TCR UK. They have put on a brilliant performance here at this debut weekend for the championship. I think a lot of people will have sat up and taken notice this weekend of just what a great championship this could become, and this already is, with some great racing up and down the order. So Podium almost ready to get our 3 drivers up there in reverse order: Oliver Taylor, Andreas Bachmann, and our race winner Dan Lloyd. We're just waiting for the drivers to make their way up there. It sometimes takes some time, especially when they've got lots of discussions to have with each other. Well, how did your race go? Oh, well, mine went all right. Or it was a good overtake you pulled down there, wasn't it? These are the sort of chats that the drivers end up having on the way up to the podium, and sometimes they can go on a little bit. But we are, I think, about ready. Gemma Ratzing there from TCR UK, ready to help out with the presentations. Jen's put an awful lot of hard work into making this happen, and I know she's been a bit emotional on a few occasions this weekend, as have we all, to see the success that it's become. So on to the podium comes Ollie Taylor, 2 third places, a good afternoon's work for him. And the Honda Civic looks as rapid as ever, doesn't it, in TCR competition. 3rd place trophy for him. A huge cheer for Andreas Bachmann down below the podium. That is one of the feel-good stories of the day, isn't it, to have him on the podium. And then we wait for our double race victor and early championship leader, Daniel Lloyd. 2 race victories, a pole position. You can't ask for much more than that. A great victory for Dan Lloyd. And he holds the winner's trophy aloft on the top step of the podium. They all now gather together for the photos together on the top of the podium. But they are 3 very happy drivers, very enthusiastic drivers, and hopefully 3 drivers we'll see fighting for the championship over the course of the season.
Should get champagne this time.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a fantastic weekend of racing with TCR UK. Here is how the early championship standings look. Daniel Lloyd, as we said, a fairly handy championship lead, it must be said, over Oliver Taylor in 2nd place, 25 points the advantage. Andreas Bachmann 3rd, who would have said that at the start of the day, ahead of Howard Fuller and Aidan Moffat. 5th place, 47 points off the championship lead. Such bad luck for the young Scotsman. Ollie Kangas 6th, Jessica Bachmann 7th, Finley Crocker 8th, Stuart Lyons 9th, and Lewis Kent in 10th. Teams Championship, unsurprisingly, sees West Coast Racing with a very comfortable lead. Pyro Motorsport, though, had a consistent weekend too. Sean Walkinshaw Racing 3rd, only 1 point ahead of the Laser Tools Racing squad. That's going to be an interesting battle as the year goes on. LMS Racing only running the 1 car, but they're still up there in the top 5. Horizon Connect Racing, Maximum Motorsport, Stuart Lyons squad 7th, ahead of Endurance Financial Racing, Essex and Kent Motorsport, and DW Racing round out the 10. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for a history-making weekend. TCR UK is officially here, and I think everyone has sat up, taken notice, and realised just how exciting this is going to be. I can't wait for Knock Hill next time out, racing in the reverse direction around there. That's going to be a lot of fun indeed. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.